this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Well, hello, this is Stan again in Gainesville, Florida, and welcome to our 5th, I can't believe it, anniversary show.
Hey, this is Ellen calling in from the beautiful tropics, and we are very excited to have a very special guest and good friend with us today, lighting designer extraordinaire Natasha Katz.
Woohoo! This is David, coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore area of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers and Sistah. Welcome, everyone, to episode 260, and that means this is our 5th anniversary show.
I'm confused. How do you get to 260 when there's 52 weeks a year?
It's math.
It doesn't work.
Yes, it does.
No, 52 times 2 is what, 104?
Yeah, okay.
Wait a minute, let me do the math. And 104 times 5 is what? Is it right?
We're 5 lighting designers here trying to do math. This is a mistake.
That's
okay?
520.
Anyway, all we know that this is episode 260, and it's our 5th anniversary show.
Is my contract up? That's my question. Is my contract up?
Yes, and you don't get unemployment if you quit. So that's
Don't we have any residuals, anything?
No,
I don't get
no
any
residuals.
royalties.
This is a non-commercial
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. We're
non-commercial
socialists.
podcast. So, we've got here today the regular crew with Steve and Stan and Ellen and me. And we have an amazing, amazing guest for you today. Someone who I have known, actually all of us have known for many, many years. She is basically the queen of lighting design. And also
royalty,
a
lighting
member,
royalty.
Wait. She's, what do we call them? Legends of Light. She's a legend of light.
That's true.
Yes, we don't give away tacky swords. We don't.
We can't afford tacky swords. We're not
We can't
commercial.
afford a damn tacky sword. I mean, what does swords have to do with lighting design anyway? I just can never figure that out. But that being said, we have wonderful Natasha Katz here. Natasha, how are you today?
Hey, you guys, and Ellen.
Thanks for being here.
Oh,
Yeah.
my God.
Thank you for having
We
me.
can thank Ellen for nabbing you.
Yeah, she set you up. She set us up.
Because she runs away from us. We could have done it without Ellen.
That's right.
So thank you, Ellen, for getting Natasha
You're
here.
more than
And-
welcome. Thanks
Yeah,
to
and-
Natasha for
Well,
agreeing.
I'm thrilled to be here. I'd go anywhere Ellen goes.
Oh, really?
How about Las
Yeah.
Vegas in November?
Well, I don't know about that,
Las
actually.
Vegas in November. What's happening in Las Vegas in November? Oh,
Well,
I know.
a little trade show we put on, but Natasha's always busy. But we could Zoom you in, We are very good at that now.
Now we all are, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
listen, my daughter I gave birth in Las Vegas to my first child
Wow.
when I was working on EFX.
So you gave birth in Las Vegas. What was that like?
If anybody wants to have a baby, it's a great place to have a baby. I'll say that.
I mean, did you have to leave the casino floor?
It was just like that. It was very similar.
Jerry Harris is like, sit down. We're not done with that yet.
We'll get to that story later. But what do you all think? This has been 5 years we've been doing this. 5 years.
I'm
Who
telling
would
you.
have thunk it?
I
you know,
didn't think it would last 5 weeks.
And David, I think you failed to mention the other good soldiers who soldiered on with us for 5 years.
That's right. You did.
And
That's
who are
right.
they?
Well, of
That's
course, Brackley, right?
Right.
Right.
And
We have Driscoll, we have Ann, we have Zach.
Both Anns, Ann McMills and Ann Militello.
Oh, true.
And of course, Ellen, too. And who are we forgetting? You said Driscoll, Brackley. Okay. Yeah, these are guest hosts that we've had for many, many years, and we can thank them for keeping the show fresh.
And their careers
More
have
than
not
anything
suffered.
else. Amazingly so, unlike our careers. That's a whole nother story. I mean, our careers have suffered.
By the way, your math is right. 52 times 5 is definitely 260.
Thank you,
Ellen. Stan, are you a full professor?
He's got his abacus
Stan is
out
really
right now.
quiet.
not in math.
He knows the new math.
I know the old math.
Oh, God. All right. Well, anyway, 5 years, 260 episodes, over 130 countries and territories, including the Faroe Islands. And Where was
Antarctica.
Ukraine.
We had
a couple in the Ukraine. Yes,
for sure.
Yeah, amazing. And God bless them. And over 300,000 downloads.
And yet McMurdo base in Antarctica rejects us coldly. They won't even take my emails anymore.
Anyway, let's get on to our special guest because it's a lot more interesting. Yes, Natasha's here. I mean, it took us years to get Natasha. Right. And I think Ellen had to fool her that she was going to be on a different show.
No, I could listen to you guys forever.
Oh, you're so
That's sweet.
Anyway, hey, wait, I got a question for Natasha. What year did you take your union exam? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't. Early 80s.
Yes, it was, because guess who also took it that year? That's where I met you. Yes. Yes. I failed, by the way.
He was the one looking on your paper while you drew.
I copied your design. Yes, that's right. No. Back then, you couldn't do that. Back then, you had to draft everything. It was crazy.
We had a full day of drafting.
It was insane.
And we had that practical that we had to take.
And do you remember the show, the practical, what it was?
The gin game.
Yes, exactly.
You guys are vintage.
I remember.
Yeah.
Vintage. Yeah. You guys are vintage.
But we were both much younger then, right? And we were like, oh, wow, this is so cool. We're going to be New York designers. And Natasha made it, and I didn't. So there you go.
I didn't pass my first year either.
Oh.
And then the second year that I went back, Gil Helmsley was one of the interviewers. And I got to tell you, I was so nervous. So I walked in the room. I don't know what the question was, but he said to me, Natasha, why don't you walk out and just pretend this never happened and start all over again. And I came back in and I passed.
Oh, yeah.
I was so nervous.
Well, you were lucky that Gilbert was there, because Gilbert, as if you listen to the show, was a mentor for me as well. He gave me my first job. And thank God I got in the professional membership because I could never do a shop order that fast.
That test was tough.
Wasn't that tough?
You had to write it. You had to do it by exactly the right line weights, and you had to put the number of units at the end of each pipe. Mm-hmm. It was a different world than it is
real
today.
Gatekeeping.
That guy. That's a whole nother story. Anyway, let's get started with Natasha, and we'll get Ellen to tell us a little bit about her.
Okay. Natasha Katz is a New York-based lighting designer who works extensively for theater, opera, dance, concerts, and permanent lighting installations around the world. Her recent Broadway credits include Springsteen on Broadway, Diana, All My Sons, Burn This, The Prom, Frozen, Long Day's Journey into Night, Cats, School of Rock, An American in Paris, Skylight, The Glass Menagerie, Once, Follies, The Coast of Utopia, Salvage, and Aida. Natasha trained at Oberlin College and earlier in her career was mentored by Roger Morgan, a lighting designer and theater consultant. Her first Broadway production as lighting designer was the play Pack of Lies in 1985. Natasha has won 6 Tony Awards for Long Day's Journey into Night, An American in Paris, The Glass Menagerie, The Coast of Utopia, Once, and Aida, as well as a slew of other awards, including Live Design's Award for Sustained Achievement in Theatrical Lighting Design in 2016. She is currently represented on Broadway with Aladdin, which opened in 2014, and MJ, the new Michael Jackson musical. She also just opened an off-Broadway show with Suffs at the Public Theater. So I guess the basic question is, what got you into lighting design?
I've been asked that question a lot, and I realized that I'm an accidental lighting designer in the sense that all I ever wanted to do was work in the theater. I didn't, a lot of people know now when they're 15 years old because they have such great programs at schools and stuff that they want to be lighting designers, but that was not me. That was not my dream at all. I just wanted to work in the theater. And then when I was at Oberlin College, they had a internship program, and I ended up for whatever reason, with Roger Morgan, who you mentioned, lighting designer. And he happened to be, so I got a full semester's credit to work with Roger. And during that period of time, he was working on a show called I Remember Mama, Richard Rodgers' last musical, with Leave Ullman, and the out-of-town tryout in Philadelphia, and the time in New York was exactly during my semester. So I did that. I went out of town. It was, I guess, a difficult process. What did I know? I was just so happy to be there. And then I started to learn about lighting, and I liked lighting. And all the people that I met, there were wonderful people on the show. Marcia Madera, Roger, Brand Farron worked on the show. David Mitchell, Theoni Aldridge. It was unbelievable. And then I started to, as I met a lot of people, and I was asked to do these jobs, and I started to work as an associate. And I didn't go back to Oberlin. I always thought that I could if I needed to, but then I just continued to work and work and work. And then there was also Lester Policox in New York.
Mm-hmm.
This is like so from the past, but he had this amazing school called the Lester Policox Studio and Forum of Stage Design, where all the professional lighting and scenic designers and designers taught there. So Jennifer Tipton, Peggy Clark was my teacher, Tom Skelton was my teacher, life drawing classes. So it was sort of a la carte way to learn about lighting, but I didn't go to school for it. I'm definitely a product of on-the-job training.
Wow.
That's great.
You said you just wanted to work in the theater. Did you think you wanted to be an actress or a producer or director or just a storyteller? Like, what was it?
I'm never an actress. I grew up in New York City, so my parents took me to the theater all the time. You two grew up in New York? That counts.
Yes,
that's more than counts.
It's funny that we never met.
Better than Manhattan.
It's just weird. My aunt was in Manhattan, and she was a big opera fan and a Broadway goer, and she just took me all the time, like you. But she don't work in it, just appreciate it. She didn't want me to go. So yeah, my whole life was New York City.
Oh yeah, there you go. Well, that's what it was. It was just a love of theater, really.
Yeah. All right, so we have a 15-part question here.
Better write this down.
What are your favorite light sources, and how did you transition from conventional sources to LED? And do you still love tungsten?
Okay, these are very important questions. Be sure you answer these correctly.
That way,
It's going to be an exam later.
A big bucket of fish will fall on your head.
Well, I'm an old school gal. Yeah. I guess I am. You know, it's funny. I always felt, I still feel like I'm the youngest one in the room, but I'm not the youngest one in the room anymore. But I definitely prefer incandescent light. I think, it's just so much nicer on faces and clothes, and it's so much more human, the humanity behind an incandescent fixture. But it's definitely part of the past in so many different ways. As a matter of fact, it's part of the past because there's so much new equipment. But this is like the world of Broadway for me. So I'm talking about Broadway right now. We're given so much less real estate. I think I said that right. Mm-hmm. We get so much less room than we used to. And Broadway houses are so small that you can't, where you would have hung 2, 3, or 4 sets of side light in 4 different colors, there's no room for it anymore. So it's just one light. It's 3 moving lights or something. So there's no color mixing like there used to be. So I miss that. That's for sure. But the transition to LEDs, the LED fixtures have just gotten so much better and better and better and closer to incandescent. And they're still not there yet, but they are really, really close. I've done 3 or 4 shows recently with the Roby Esprit, so all the moving lights are LEDs on these last couple of performances that I've worked on. SUFs is all Encores and FR10s. So there's no fan noise. It's incredible. You can hear a pin drop now. So that is a huge step forward that we've taken, because I really do think that lighting did hurt all these shows with the fan noise. No question about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I work primarily in opera, so it's even a little more important when you have very temperamental conductors.
Right?
So you got to be real careful. Yeah. Have you tried the new ETC fixture? The new ETC,
The X8,
luster fixture.
with
The Luster
the double,
3.
the
Yeah.
double red. Yeah.
Have you seen it? Because it's pretty decent, I must say.
I've heard it's great.
We
Yeah,
just
no, I
got
haven't tried it.
8 of them, and we did them on dance. And I didn't see it live, but my colleague, who's a dance designer for many years, was like, he said, it's unbelievable. It's beautiful. But I have a follow-up question on the LEDs, though. Do you think that did it make it easier to make changes on the fly, having that quick, the ability to change things? Simpler from the console rather than send a guy up on to change the gels or move the focus, or did it make you more efficient or less efficient? I'm just curious.
There's no question more efficient. Yeah. I didn't have to pick a single color
right
on this last show that I did. So, I'm thankful for my background that I've spent so much time with color and had to pick colors. So mixing color comes to me in whatever way 30 years of doing this is, but there's no question that we're saving the producers a ton of money because we don't have to pull out ladders the way we used to. Also, I still, the freedom of it's a miracle every time I change a color in a single fixture. It's a miracle to me.
And then you can track it through the whole show too. I mean, it just seems to me it would be a welcome to us to have that. The freedom is the right word. Yeah.
Right. I just did this Chernobyl musical in Helsinki, and they had a bunch of incandescent fixtures in the front. And it was very frustrating because I couldn't color tune them. I couldn't, tune them a little cooler or a little warmer that you could do with LED. So, they're able to use a lot fewer fixtures, which is nice, along with having that incredible flexibility. So,
well, exactly what you just said. Like a costume can come on stage, and what it used to take us to make that costume look good and also make somebody's face look good. Now you can just, like you just said, you just color tune it a little bit. You change a little backlight, you change a little side light, and then you got a good looking light.
It's very surgical. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I have a question about that. What if you mix and match the brands of the LEDs? Are the colors the same, or do you have to fine tune them?
So when I start a show with all the different brands, we like let's say my 30 favorite colors, we match all of them so that they do feel the same. But certain brands don't translate because whatever their LED engines are different than somebody else's, or some are just RGB and they're not RGB AW. So that's where it starts to get a little complicated. But, this is all part of the process. Like for me, especially with these incredible moving light programmers that I work with, they're all getting more and more sophisticated and match colors and have learned how to match colors.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And we're moving the show to LA in a couple of weeks, and it's all LED. And I'm like saying, oh, thank God.
Yeah,
this is so much better. This is so much better. Yeah.
It takes away a certain kind of pressure that you might feel with the director that, I did Gypsy with Tyne Daly. Arthur Lawrence directed it. Theone Aldridge was the costume designer, and I will never forget the day down in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I did have color scrollers, but Theone, there was a lavender dress. Theone took Arthur on stage, and I was like, they are talking about me right now. And Arthur starts pointing at every single light.
Oh no!
And screams from the stage, "Why don't you have any lavender in these lights?"
Oh, God.
Because so I changed all the front light probably from some sort of warm amber thing to lavender, and the costume all of a sudden just sang in front of me. But today we just tune it a little bit.
Well, like moving lights, LEDs have saved a lot of lighting designers' lives. From the costume designer coming from behind with the heels clicking, and that in their right hand is probably some sort of sharp object. It's either a seam ripper or worse than that, it's a pair of scissors ready for your neck. And you say, quickly, add the lavender. Oh, okay. That works. So let's talk a little bit about some of your current shows, like the Michael Jackson show, the Michael Jackson musical. What is the artistic concept and how does the lighting tell the story?
This is going to sound simplistic, but I have to say the show visually, and I'm not just talking about my work, is extraordinary. And it's because of the choreographer, Derek McLean's scenery and Paul's costumes. But Chris Wheeldon has so much to do with it. It is spectacular to look at. The concept of the show, the idea of it really, it takes place in a rehearsal room. I don't know how much you know about Michael Jackson, but before he did his Dangerous tour, so 1992, I think it is. So it's a rehearsal room in LA that looks just like a crummy rehearsal room. And it's got these huge windows on both sides, 3 sets of windows, and windows upstage also with a LED screen upstage of it. But it's a reporter comes in. It's kind of really a memory piece, and it's his own memory of his own life, essentially. So it's really done in flashbacks. Those flashbacks are translated from a lighting point of view. A lot of it has to do with lights that are embedded in the scenery that you don't know are there. And so, big spoiler alert, if anybody cares, like 10 lighting designers might care.
We care.
But yeah, I know you guys do. So there we have these bulbs that they're called Colesko bulbs, so that they have a LED filament in them that looks like they're from sign lights with a regular sort of warm incandescent filament, but there's also embedded in it RGB LEDs so that they can also you can fill the bulb with those colors. So it functions in both ways. So we can be back in the 40s. Well, when did the Michael Jacksons start? The 50s, where you feel a marquee light the way you would, or we can translate further into the future and with the different colored LED bulbs all in one bulb, and it's all embedded behind scrim and things like that. A lot of new neon in the show that's also hidden until we turn it on. So it's really, and these windows also function there. They have, they're frosted. So it looks like it's sunlight coming through, and we do a lot of time of day stuff so that it feels real. And then all of a sudden the windows can turn to any color and have gobos on them and function as really kind of this motif of flashbacks. And then you add an LED wall on top of it all. And then Chris Wheeldon, the director choreographer, we have panels that also light up that's what moves from one scene to another. So the transitions are so seamless, you blink and all of a sudden you're in the past, you're in the present. It's amazing.
Sounds very cinematic. Sounds very cinematic.
Yeah, super cinematic. I'm definitely a fan.
Wow.
Sounds really exciting.
It is exciting. Come see it when you come to New York.
It's on my list.
On my list. Yeah, that sounds great.
Top. So when you walk into a theater like that, what I call a 4-wall situation where there's nothing in there, how do you scope out the fixtures for your rig?
Well, again, Broadway, the great thing about Broadway is that we can pick whatever we want. It's just the only constraint. The real constraint would be money more than anything else. So when it's 4-wall, I think, whether your audience knows or not, it means literally that you walk into 4 empty walls. There's nothing there except some pipes might be hanging there, but that's it. So, I get to pick whatever I want that seems to befit the show, as long as it's not too expensive.
Do you have a lot of manufacturers encouraging you to use their latest equipment and to take a chance on their equipment?
Yeah, well, yeah. Why wouldn't,
And have you made some great discoveries about lights through this process?
That's a good question.
Like tools? Like say, I would never think I would use that, but I'm glad I chose that.
I do. Yes, is the answer to that.
This is exciting. I love this sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, me too. And
stories you want us to tell about, like you didn't want to use a Viper, but you tried the Viper. You said, "Oh wow, this is a great light." Anything off the top of your head?
PRG is really helpful about doing demos. They have an amazing demo room, so PRG lighting, and certainly, they're the same now. But when Darren DeVerna was there, it was just incredible working with Darren. I knew him since we were both in our young 20s, but they've continued all that too. Everybody who's still there is amazing, but they do have this demo room, and we just did a demo of every single moving light that Jerry Harris set up for us.
Wow.
Every single moving light, and we compared them all. But what I have learned is that you do it at the demo, but you never really know until you really use them. You really don't know what those colors are going to be like on people's faces, or the ambers seem to drop out on every single moving light. They're never as bright as you want them to be. Right. Somebody explain that to me. Maybe one of you guys can explain it. I don't know, but they're never bright enough.
Yeah.
But anyway, I know they all have something,
When you say
LEDs, and even this, a Viper too.
Yeah.
The minute you put a little warm amber in it,
it's like
not as bright as you want it to be.
Well, they do age, so that's maybe
That's
a
true.
feature. Is there any moving light or that you used, like David was saying, that you're in the theater and you're working it, and it does something that you didn't expect, and you went, oh, I could use that, or I didn't, and that sort of surprised you in a good way, let's say. Or bad.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about bad ways.
Okay.
we don't want to trash anyone.
In a good way. Like, I didn't expect it to do that, and it did that really well, or something.
Yeah, this is a really boring story, but it's the first one that came to my head. It's like a Sharpie wash. I never expected it to have the power that it had. Mm-hmm. You can use it as a backlight wash. I always thought it was just a special feature unit, but you could use it as backlights. Or any kind of wash, really. Yeah. Can you think of one yourself? Something that you've used that maybe a little.
I could think of some that I did not like that I won't mention on the show, but I think the first time I used the Viper, actually, I really do like the Viper. And
I do too.
Now, the show is moving. We were using Robi T1s in Finland, and it's moving to LA, and they want me to use either. This is crazy. Either Vipers or Ghiblis. You know the Ghibli?
Oh, but I love those.
Okay, because I'm trying to decide between the two, and you saying you love them. Did you find the frost troublesome? Because it's only 2 levels of frost.
Well, here's the thing. I love them in a demo. I haven't used them for real. So there you go.
Well, if the light frost works, that's the only thing I was concerned about. So, and I still may choose them, but when you're moving a show from one fixture to another, it's always a little, iffy.
Well, have you found a moving light that can soften the way an old Lico used to soften with a gobo in it?
Yeah, David did the GLP. Which one is it that has a variable frost? That's really nice.
Well, a lot of them have variable frost. I mean, even the Viper has variable frost.
But didn't we like that GLP that we saw at
the
OVI?
GLP. Yeah, the GLP fixture. Oh, what was it called?
GLP profile does it really?
Right, it's a smaller light.
S350, I think it is.
Yes, it's a 350. It's a great light. If you're in a small situation, it doesn't have a lot of oomph.
It's not going to be the.
But
big,
if you're like, if it's like a 30-foot or 40-foot throw, then it's a pretty decent light. Actually, it's a great light. Actually, I really like it.
I've just fallen in love with these FR10s, the GLP FR10s.
Oh, GLP,
the strip light
stuff.
Yeah, strip lights. Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, I've used them as VTSs. Talk about, Gilbert Hemsley, he used to use the vertical toning strips all the time on the sides of the stage. And he used to take PAR 64 strip lights and put them on their ends.
I remember that.
I've been using these other fixtures, these new LED fixtures like this GLP one, as those in shows. And they're fantastic because you can also, you can spot them down and flood them out. It's fantastic.
Speaking of that, Natasha, didn't you do something really unique on Aida? I remember reading, in probably a magazine that Ellen published, but it was the way you lit a backdrop where you did 2 verticals and a horizontal around a drop, and you shined whatever you used. I don't remember the fixture into itself, so nothing was hitting the drop directly, and it was all lit by the ambient. So it was sort of like an indoor. Does that ring a bell for you?
Does ring a bell for me because
talk about that because that was a pretty great thing, I thought.
I'm overusing the word miracle, but that's miracle number 2 in my life.
Okay.
Changing colors and the backdrop on Aida. We had 2 feet to light a drop that, well, you can't, how do I describe it? There was essentially so it was a cyc, but it ended up being a downstage. There was just muslin, and 2 feet upstage of it was a bounce drop. And he had this kind of horizon line that flew in and flew out. And my dream was that the bottom of the horizon would be one color, like a horizon would be, and the top would be another color. So 2 feet.
Oh my God.
We had 2 feet with a 40-foot wide cyc.
That brilliant thing you did was out of necessity, in a sense.
That's exactly right. I don't know if I ever would have come up with it otherwise. So it was
interesting.
It was 2 rows of par 64, very
64.
narrow.
Oh my God.
Like every 18 inches, right?
Pushed as tight as they could possibly go.
Right.
Every single one on its own dimmer. So that's like the cells that you were just talking about in the LED. Now it's just an LED.
Now it's easy. Yeah.
Cell on a strip light, and so that I was able to. And then I focused it to the center of the bounce.
Yeah.
And so much light bounced in there that it fully lit the cyc, and it lit it in horizontal. I could control it horizontally going up.
It was brilliant.
Down.
I didn't see it live, but it's so brilliant. And I wanted to ask you, did it, because I didn't see it myself with my own eyes, did it have a different quality because it was indirect?
It definitely did. It was so beautiful. It really was.
Softness.
There were so many happy accidents in it because the light was bouncing. It was oddly bouncing all over the place, but horizontally. It's as if I said, okay, you can't go more than 2 inches above where you're focused. And that's what it did.
From a watch light, from a par 64.
Exactly.
Has anybody ever duplicated that? Because I don't know if any people use that trick, but I remember it because I thought, oh, what a great way to do it.
Well, I don't think there's anything like a par can that could do it. Actually, you couldn't take one of these strip lights. They're not strong enough yet. Right. They will be one day, though. Yeah. They will be. We'll have them on the side doing exactly that. I can't believe you remember that.
Oh, I have a memory like an elephant about good stuff.
His math skills suck, but his memory's great.
My math skills and my typing are terrible. But,
typing's terrible too.
The muslin was starched. That's an important part. If anybody ever wants to make one, it did have starch in it, so that it covered up, so that the holes were filled in the muslin.
Oh,
so that it wasn't. So you wouldn't see the sources that way as it hit the bounce drop.
It was just something, and I wish I could have seen it live. But I'm going to go back even further when I get to the next question. But Steve has the next question.
Yeah, we got a question from a student regarding Diana, and she writes, "I have seen the Netflix recording of Diana, and I saw the closing performance on Broadway. What was it like to adopt a show for streaming, especially one that only had a handful of previews before the shutdown? And when you returned to officially reopen the show, did you or the production team feel any pressure not to stray away from the look you achieved streaming?"
Wow.
I wish I could ask her if she liked the show.
She did. She's one of my students. She loved the show.
Yeah, we got handed a bad rap from some of those critics because I love that show. We filmed it during the pandemic. We 3 months into the pandemic. I think we were the only ones at that point who had done something like that. So it was scary, exciting. They knocked on your door to drop food off in your hotel room. You weren't allowed to see anybody. We all walked together. We couldn't leave. We couldn't go to a coffee shop. So I was, 30 blocks from my home, but I couldn't go home. It was so exciting and intense to film that. And I haven't done a lot of that kind of work. So I definitely learned a lot. It was, I think for Declan Quinn is the cinematographer, and then we ended up doing another project after that, actually, that you probably all know more about this than I do, but, they really need a softer kind of light than we give in the theater. And also, if somebody's looking stage left and the camera's coming from stage left, the upstage side of their face isn't filled in because they can't get cameras there. We can't get lights there. So all of that, we figured it all out. Declan had a lot of soft lights that he put all over the set, but his idea was to, make it look as much as it looked on Broadway. So that all went really well. And then the question was whether we felt no pressure to make it look like what the show looked like streamed, meaning that the director, the producer, we just wanted the best Broadway show that we could have. So ultimately, the two shows are very similar, but if they had wanted to completely change it, I'm sure they would have, but they didn't want to. So there was no pressure other than to make a great show, which I thought we did.
Now, we've already established that there was this show called the FX in Las Vegas, and it was a very important time in your life, which I didn't know that little detail, but I did see that production, and I was really excited to see it. And I think we might agree that the story is not so great, the FX. That was my opinion. But there was a moment in that show that I have remembered to this day. It was really beautiful and incredibly clever. And I think somebody wrote an article about it, and I think I understand how it was done. But I want to know how it came to be, if it was a happy accident. And let me just describe to you what I saw. There was a moment in the show when the lead character, played by at the time, I think it was David Cassidy, right? And he's in this little spaceship, and he's moving around the stage, flying in this little spaceship. And I think you're using a Verilight, and I think you're using what they call the laser cone gobo or whatever it is. It's like a ring, and it's their backlight, and it's hazed. And I'm thinking that there's a really great backdrop, and that the article talked about that it was the little spaceship was like the arm of a high ranger. And it was covered in black, and you couldn't see it. And I thought, how brilliant is this? Because it looked like the light was sort of creating this curtain effect, and the follow spot or whatever tracked him in the spaceship. And I just thought this was the most clever thing I ever saw. So could you talk about that moment, how it came to be, and was it thought through, or was it a happy accident, or how did it? Or am I completely making this up, and is it a myth?
No, that's all true. That's all true. That's 27 years ago.
Yes. Well, I'm old.
But I can still remember. Yeah, and I can remember it. I can remember it, though. That was talked about. That was definitely designed.
It was designed.
That was really talked about. I mean, it was a cherry picker, essentially. Yeah. That he was in. He was lit by uplights that were in the. He wasn't lit with a follow spot.
Lights in the bucket.
Yeah, because if he was lit with a follow spot, the spot would have hit the backdrop.
Right.
Yeah, and there was, even today, I don't think you could really track him. I guess we could now with Zack Track or Black Tracks. Yeah. We probably could.
And the backlight effect, that was thought through and tested and designed to get that sort of.
And I think there was more conversation. That if we have a lot of haze in the air and backlight somehow, that we won't see the arm.
Yeah, that's the question. How did you hide the base of the cherry picker and the arm?
It's, it kind of all goes back to Svoboda in a way, light curtains. It's walls of light through haze, really, is what it was. Really? So that's how we did it. I mean, I think we were all pretty confident about that effect at the time, that it would work. We did not do any kind of demo of that. We just, I guess, crossed our fingers and hoped for the best.
It was magic.
And I think we knew ultimately, we could always just uplight him if you couldn't turn on a light.
Well, 27 years ago, it was like, oh wow, this is magic, and it.
Oh yeah, I guess so. That probably was never done.
No,
before.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was like, oh wow, can I duplicate this? I need to know the recipe for this because it was so good.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't that the point of that show? It was called EFX because it just had all kinds of really weird technical stuff going on in all four of the sections.
Pontificate projectors everywhere and all that. Yeah.
And that dragon, Merlin, that had an articulated head. And that show had a very long gestation period, if I recall.
Well, she was giving birth. She was,
right.
That's right.
I want to know, when did this event happen? Did it happen in previews? Was it during text? Was it, what did you just open? I mean, and how did that work? I think that's really fascinating.
It was a long gestation period, so I was not pregnant when it started.
Okay.
And then I did get pregnant. So we were supposed to open in September. I think I was like 6 months pregnant or something. My daughter was born in December, so whatever, 6 months pregnant, whatever. And then the show got postponed.
Oh.
Well, first of all, Jerry Harris was the producer, and I just really have to, he gets a huge shout out for completely supporting me through it.
Wow, fantastic.
And really fantastic.
Way ahead of his time, unfortunately, but it's true. Thank God you did
Not a moment of, oh my God, this is going to be a problem, anything like that. Never, ever, ever. And then then the show got postponed, and I was in Las Vegas for whatever. I was probably visiting for a week, and I did call my husband, and we had a talk and said, okay, we got to find a doctor in Las Vegas. And then I did work up. I did work up until the day before I went into the hospital.
Wow.
And I'll tell you this one story.
Okay, please,
go.
Light Talk special.
I got to the hospital. I was probably there for like 3 hours, and an electrician called me up. And at the hospital, did we have cell phones in 1980? In 1994?
Very early,
94.
like Motorola flip phones, maybe.
Yeah. Blackberries.
I think he called me in the hospital room, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is so sweet of you to call me." He said, "Has your baby been born?" And I said, "No, not yet." And then he said, "Shit." And he had put his bet on at 10:10 that morning that she'd be born. Funny. So somebody made like $800 off my daughter's birth.
You see, I thought
it is Las Vegas.
Las Vegas,
of course. And I thought you were going to say that he was going to ask you if he could twofer fixtures 7 and 8 together. That's like an electric.
That's what I thought.
The day I arrived in the hospital, the set was so big. Ellen, you saw the show.
Yep,
Did you see?
Yeah,
it was like 100 feet wide and like 60 feet deep. This enormous piece of scenery came on Merlin's den, and the whole deck as it tracked on, the whole deck went. And the scenery was too heavy for him. So in the day, I've always thought Roy Sears, who was the carpenter, did that on purpose for me, so that I didn't have to, because nobody could work for 2 weeks. So I had 2 weeks. My darling daughter, and then I went back to work.
He intentionally sabotaged the show
to give you time to have birth.
What a guy.
I can't remember what the show was about, though.
It was about Merlin and Jules Verne and
that's right.
P.T. Barnum and somebody else, and there were 4 sections, and just how extraordinary it all was.
That sounds pretty cool.
Well, Ellen, you
got
the
4th one?
Memory.
Really?
Houdini, right there you go.
Houdini. So, Natasha, most of us here are children of the 70s, and I love Bruce Springsteen. I mean, amazing artist, and a true American songwriter. What was it like to work on The Boss on Broadway?
I just got full body chills as you said that.
About thinking back at the time?
About, I know how people feel about him, and also what the experience was like. Definitely top 3 experiences of my career. He was incredible to work with, really, really nice. Everybody who's worked with him has been there for like 40 years. And if you, if you think of his songs and how descriptive they are and poetic, that's the way he was as a director, because he directed it.
Wow,
so he talked in imagery to me. We sat together, we talked about it. He was not an absent director in any way, shape, or form. And it was all through images, really. Nice. So it was never, I wish, because it was the set that Heather Walensky did, which was quite beautiful, was kind of a backstage kind of looking warehouse, brick wall in the back. So the imagery was never, I wish it was a little light on the back wall. It was more like, and I traveled through the country, and this is the way I was feeling, and the sun was rising, and things like that. And it was extraordinary. It was an incredible experience.
That's great.
Not to mention to listen to him every night.
I can just imagine. We've all been fortunate to meet our heroes, and people who have inspired us, artists. And that's, one person I would just love to meet and talk to for a while. Did you ever have a chance to meet Stevie Van Zandt? Was he hanging around there?
He wasn't. I never met him.
That's another guy I'd like to hang out and talk with.
Yeah. Well, you should do his show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. That's true.
And then I'll ask you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Bill Maher was interviewing him, I think, last season. It was really interesting. But what great stories that all the guys in the band had, and women in the band have.
We had these 6 Sharpies that for the Rising, I don't know, it's about 9/11, the song. And there were 3 stage left, 3 stage right. And they sort of made a diagonal cross over him, not like a religious cross, but they crossed like sort of fingers of God over him. And I thought, I'll turn them on at a key change, and I'll just leave them on for the end of the song. And he saw them, and he said, just have them come up and have them go away. And it was an extraordinary, it was just so, because it was the sort of the metaphor of life and death so quickly, how fleeting it is. Somehow he captured that in that moment. That's what I mean about his input into all of it.
Well,
Very poetic.
He's an amazing storyteller, but also he's a musician and an incredible composer, and he understands how light and music connect. And I think he saw that image, and he saw, it as just another extension, another instrument in the composition of the moment of the song. And he said, it's so like, play the guitar for the bridge, but then let it drop out for the next verse, And so that story does not surprise me. But unfortunately, so few people realize this, and a lot of directors don't realize it because they may not be musicians. But that's fantastic. That's a wonderful story.
Yeah. This is so interesting, isn't it? That somebody who you wouldn't think is a director like him, it's one of the best directors I ever worked with.
I believe it. it just makes sense.
Yeah, I can see that you totally know what I'm talking about.
he just totally, this is what he does on stage all the time.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So you talked a minute before about the choreography for MJ. With Christopher Wheeldon. And you've had a long collaboration with him. I think you've worked on a lot of other dance pieces. So can we talk a little about your dance work as well and his pieces?
Well, most of my dance work is with Chris, actually. I've done other things, but most of it's with Chris. It's been 20 years now. I'm just beginning to put it all together. We met on Sweet Smell of Success. Nick Heitner found him. Well, Bob Crowley, Nick Heitner, I don't know which one anymore found him, but he'd been a dancer at City Ballet. And then Chris, he's, you know, a lot younger than I am. He asked me to do a ballet at San Francisco Ballet with him right after we did Sweet Smell of Success. I don't know why. I don't know any of it anymore, except we clicked.
Except you're really talented.
Thank you, Alan. And then Chris moved into this narrative world, you know, of trying to tell stories rather than sort of abstract ballets. And well, I don't know, we moved into that world together. We're in each other's head. I don't know what else to say about it. Somehow we've found each other. I don't know what half of the ballet terms he's using are. It doesn't matter. We found some other language. So, you know, maybe for listeners, that's a good thing to know. I think as lighting designers, you know, this idea that a director says to you, "Oh, I'd like to see a sunset," and then we say to ourselves, "Okay, one at full," or whatever whatever it is. So what are we? You know, we're really interpreters and we are translators all the time. But what do? We translate. We may not be able to add up 560, but we translate all this stuff into numbers. Mm-hmm. And then the number actually comes out as some kind of art. So we're interpreters and translators, and lighting's really kind of an amazing job that, you know, so few people really understand it. But anyway, somehow I found the right numbers with Chris.
I think you just made the title of the show, The Translator.
Right.
I like it.
You know, it's interesting because Howell Binkley, who was as prolific a lighting designer as you are, also had a long-term standing relationship with the choreographer, David Parsons. And I just wondered whether, you know, it's sort of like changing gears a little bit. Like, oh my God, I've just done 6 huge musicals. I need to take a little break. And you do something a little more artistic, a little smaller scale, just breathe a little bit into it. And, you know, it's another world.
You know, that's a really good point, Ellen. I see what you're asking. It's true. It uses different muscles. There's no question about it. And it's sort of a little more fanciful I don't know what the right word is, but it doesn't have the same pressure as the millions and millions of dollars on a Broadway musical, or even this off-Broadway musical that I'm doing right now. It doesn't have the same kind of pressure. But also Chris is not dissimilar to Bruce Springsteen in that he's just so visual, and he just makes me a better lighting designer than I ever thought I could be, because his ideas never stop coming. My head is spinning most of the time when Chris is talking to me, because the ideas just never stop. So maybe that's what I'm attracted to in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we build on that a little bit? You know, we have students all the time asking about collaboration. You know, what is your process? What is your vocabulary? When do you know? You clearly just spoke on when it's working. When it's not quite working, how do you nudge it?
Oof. Yeah, it's hard when it's not working.
But it always works.
Eventually.
For our listeners at home, Natasha has been a cyclorama. She has been a parcan on a boom. She has been beams of light in the air. She's waved her hands and been a fog machine, and now she's taken the pose of the thinker, trying to figure out quite how to answer this question.
Oh my God.
That's funny.
It's funny how it all comes down to personal interactions with people. And I think, I don't know about the rest of you, but I do feel like I'm a chameleon, you know, and a big part of my job is to really listen and try. It's what we were just talking about. It's really trying to figure out what is it that the director and the set designer and all the other people that we have to respond to, what is the story that they're trying to tell? And sometimes when we're not, like the question was, one part of the question is like when it's not clicking, I think what I try to do is try to figure out if something's really not clicking, what is it that they want? And sometimes it can just be personality, you know, sometimes they can just not like you. And then that's that, you know, you'll never click. but and sometimes it's out of their own insecurity. It's just personal. It just becomes so personal. But I think a huge part of it is, for me, is really just trying to understand what it is that they're trying to do. I have ideas in the back of my head, but I am there to serve. I sound like Darren DeVerne. I'm a service business, but I do feel that way. You know, I'm there to tell their story, their viewpoint on what the story is.
Let me ask you a little sidebar question here. I mean, as a lighting designer, we know what your job is. As more and more video projection comes in to the show, what's that collaboration like? Because all of a sudden there's video that's adding a great deal of light into the show.
Yeah, really good question. I think we're all struggling with that. And I don't mean that in a pejorative way at all. For me, I've had great experiences, and there's no question that video adds such an incredible layer to the storytelling and to what a show looks like. But I would say from a technical point of view, that the hardest part is that is literally foreground and background. And, you know, I was taught, and I do it when I'm lighting my shows, if there's no video designer, I bring up the background first. That's where I start. I start by making the environment. And then I'm not saying that it's easy to light actors' faces, but then I work on the actors' faces, because the background for me so determines what the foreground's going to be. So when a video designer is determining the background, the brightness, the color, all of that, then it's in a whole different world. You know, then I'm saying to the video designer, could you just make that a little darker? There's a key change here. Could we do this? Could we do that? It's I think we're all going to find our vocabularies as the years go on, you know, so, and they're like us, you know, they're chameleons, and some of them are chameleons, and some are collaborators, some aren't. So I don't know. I think we have a road ahead, but it's a great part of our business. We just have to find out how to talk to each other.
Yeah. And the ones who aren't usually don't last very long.
Well, good riddance.
Ride the wave or be buried by it. Right?
You're never going to make it in this business. Oh, what do you really think there?
Maybe you should edit that out. I'm joking.
Fantastic.
No, I think you're pointing
Off
off
with
with
their head.
The foreground is really key, right? In terms of making the composition. Yeah.
That's the problem, is that so many directors don't realize that. And they're saying, what are you lighting the background for? I can't see the, I'll get there.
Give me a minute. Yeah.
I'll get there. Give me a minute. I'll get there. Don't worry about it. You know, or you bring up something generic just so that they can see the face, and then you still work on the background, and then you fix the foreground. But it's, you know, it is a battle for people who don't know your process.
That's so well said, David. That's exactly.
I'm good for
right.
one of those a day, so I'm done. Okay. So Stan has our last question, right?
Yeah, this is one of our stock questions, but we love to ask it because we do have a lot of student listeners. So,
A lot of students.
So what advice would you give to young designers starting out today?
What
What would you tell your younger self, maybe?
If you were growing up today. Because it's different, right?
I'm still growing, for crying out loud.
Well,
God.
if you were like 17 or 18 years old today, and, you know, post-COVID, we hope, we pray, you know, what advice would you give?
You know what? I think some of it's been in this talk that we've had. I think getting in touch with designers in terms of getting work is important. I'm a great believer in working for other designers, because that's the way I grew up, by working for Roger, and I worked with Jules Fisher for a long time, and Ken Billington. These people were so important to Marcia Madera. I became who I am because of them, no question about it. And being in the room and watching them, how they interacted with directors and things like that, because our world is everything that we were just talking about. It is not just what you learn in school. I would say that just to try to design as much as you can. I mean, my first shows in New York City were with little rheostat home dimmers that I put a rubber band on to master them. I hung my own lights. You don't get to the top overnight. It's all those things that we think it is. Get in touch with designers. Oh, there's so many other things. Oh my God, I'm missing all the important things like read the newspaper, read books, read plays. People reference direct, and this is not just about the theater and let's also say that this conversation is not just about the theater, which is that I do believe as a lighting designer, knowing about the theater is a great way to start because you learn about storytelling so much, but this all can branch out off into event design, architectural design, being an electrician, going into the world of rock and roll. There are just so many avenues as a lighting designer. It can take you to production management if you decide that you can become a movie producer by the time it's done, or a producer. David, oh my
Byrne?
God. No, not David Byrne. Oh, Richard Winkler.
Oh, Richard.
Who used to be, he was a great lighting designer, worked as Theron's assistant for so many years. He's producing shows on Broadway now. The road is long. We all know that. I know what all of you have done in your careers. Look at that. And I drafted for years for Roger Morgan and for Jules and their architectural firms. I learned about riser diagrams, all of that. I worked in all the Disney at the parks, and there's so many jobs for young lighting designers. So the references become really important when somebody's referring to like a Janet Jackson video, or somebody's referring to, it's a terrible reference, but just all this sort of war-torn stuff that you're seeing in the Ukraine, that can affect. Those are images that stay with you forever, and people are going to start referencing those. Or music that you hear, listen to a lot of music. All of that stuff becomes part of a vocabulary that, as a young designer, and me as I get older, you can start to reference all that. And it's a way to talk to each other. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know, oh my God, if I had just gone to the museum and looked at that Vermeer, I might have been able to say, oh, look at this. This is what it could look like. It's really a head high from stage left. So there it is. I don't know if that helps or not.
It does. Wonderful. We agree wholeheartedly with all of that.
Well, it's beautiful.
You sure we're not 17 anymore?
We are. We definitely are.
No, thank you. Yes.
Well, it's like, my girlfriend told us that. She goes, I still feel 18, and it's, it was funny because she had never seen All About Eve, and we watched it last night. And I said, you want to know what the theater's like? Here you go.
All right. Oh my God.
And don't be Eve. That's my suggestion to people. Don't be Evie, because people remember, especially in the theater.
That's a really good point. You do need to be kind to everybody, because they're going to be around as long as you're going to be around. Mm-hmm. And if you're not kind,
don't burn your bridges. I have a recommendation since Natasha referenced Ukraine. I don't know if you know this, but Zelensky's show, Servant of the People, has been put back on Netflix.
Yes,
and we are in episode 3. Now remember that he made this, and he became, in the show, he's a high school teacher who becomes president. So this is an example rather than art imitating life, it's life imitating art. And it's very interesting to watch that, knowing what's happening at the moment and who he is. So I highly recommend it while it's up there.
Thanks, Stan. Yeah. Natasha, thank you so much for being with us today. Unfortunately, we have to stop because we're like at our limit.
We're over an hour.
I'm sorry.
But no, you're fantastic.
It's great.
Fantastic interview.
You have to come back again.
I'm not cutting any of it because we've had Ken on the show. We've had Dwayne. We had a lot of really great lighting designers, and you certainly rank, with them, with the legends of
You're
light.
You're in the pantheon of anniversary
and some
shows.
of them are like over an hour long, and that's cool because you have so much to say. So thank you so much. And thank you for being a fan of the show as well.
No, I love your show. I love your show so much. So that I feel honored to be here on your 5th anniversary.
Fifth anniversary. We usually have a big star for the 5th anniversary, and we were talking about who to get. And Allison, I think I could talk Natasha into this if I don't tell her what show it is. Okay, great. Okay, so if you get Natasha, man, that would be a huge, huge find. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
And-
what show is this, by the way? I've been meaning to ask Ellen.
The rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, livedesignonline.com, Amazon Prime Music, and just about every other podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to the podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
Accept the information from Natasha, but if you do decide to litigate, the law firm Reflect, Flux, Flare, and Glare and their paralegal Snoot will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers and Sistah, coming to you from New York, St. Bart, Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Republic of Texas.
And be sure to join us next week when we chat about more useless things and explore the crazy shenanigans in our industry.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
Thanks again, Natasha. It was fantastic. And we will
Absolutely.
see you, everyone, next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light
Thank you
Talk.
so much, Natasha Katz.
I really enjoyed
That was
it.
great. You're
That was-
wonderful.
yeah, thank you guys.
Very eloquent.
Awesome.
Lumen